100,000 revealed. Millionaire laughed it cleaner, but her amazing truth transformed everything. Sarah stumbled into her kitchen before dawn, the faint light creeping through the window as she brewed her strong black coffee. The scent enveloped her, urging her into another day of scrubbing floors and emptying trash. She couldn't help but smile at the thought of her two children, their faces bright with dreams far bigger than her own, and her heart swelled with a mixture of pride and guilt. Each morning she pushed aside the ache of their unmet desires, those sometimes tender but piercing questions that twisted in her gut. "Can we ever afford a family vacation, Mom?" Her youngest's innocent plea haunted her as she donned her work uniform, the weight of her world resting heavily on her shoulders. At the prestigious law firm where she worked, the sharp suits and polished shoes of the attorneys brushed past her without acknowledgement, particularly Daniel. He was a 40-something self-assured attorney whose smirk explained everything. His contempt for the help was evident in the way he walked by, eyes scanning her like she was part of the furniture, unworthy of his notice. She fought to keep her head high, reminding herself that her job, humble as it may seem, provided for her children. Each sweep of the mop echoed her sacrifices, learning hard work from her father, lessons of honor that she cherished inside, even as society judged her by the job she held. But everything shifted when news of a monumental case rocked the firm. A critical document vanished mere moments before it was to be presented in court. Chaos reigned, and within that turmoil, the blame fell squarely on Sarah's shoulders. "A cleaner couldn't resist," they whispered. It felt like a kick to her chest, the fury bubbling within her. How could they assume that she, one who sacrificed every day for her family, would ever steal? Gritting her teeth, she felt the flicker of indignation ignite a fire in her veins. Before she could hesitate or lose her resolve, she recalled her father's voice urging her to uphold her integrity. "Fight for what's right, Sarah," he would say, a mantra that fueled her determination. Tech-savvy by nature, she harnessed her skills. She whizzed through the firm's digital archives late into the night, wondering why she had been underestimated in the first place. An investigation in her mind began to unravel, connections buried deep in digital shadows, emerging like ghosts demanding to be seen. News of her progress reached her as Daniel's disdain turned into glaring scrutiny. With each passing day, the pressure built. The nights grew sleepless. A relentless barrage of fear licked at her resolve. What if she failed? She enlisted the help of her tech-savvy neighbor and her older brother, uniting their disparate talents to unveil the truth hidden beneath layers of deceit. Her heart raced as her discovery loomed. Daniel's arrogance, too, was just a mask for insecurity. She grappled fiercely with her dilemma. Was it time to expose the hidden corruption at the risk of drawing fire toward herself and her children? Confrontation awaited in the courtroom, where tension rose to a boiling point. Would she unravel Daniel's comfortable world and risk her fragile existence? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As Sarah prepared to face Daniel, the stakes shot through the roof. Their gazes locked, neither ready to back down any longer, as the courtroom brimmed with heightened anticipation. What neither knew was that the answers held the power to shatter their lives, just as they were starting to understand their own worth. The silent battle was spiraling toward a point of no return, and both would have to confront what lay beneath their facades, setting the stage for an explosive revelation. As the gavel pounded down, signaling the start of the session, Sarah's heart thundered in her chest. The courtroom felt constricting, each breath laden with the weight of a dozen unspoken possibilities. She could sense Daniel's smirk lingering on the periphery, a disquieting reminder of the power he wielded, both in the firm and in her life. Frustration twisted inside her as she mentally prepared for the confrontation. She knew this was not just a matter of proving her innocence, but a defining moment that would forge her new identity. Daniel rose, his voice smooth, laced with casual contempt as he addressed the judge. "Your Honor, it is imperative that we recognize the capabilities and limitations of those we employ. A cleaner, while valuable, lacks the discretion required in a firm of our stature." With those words, he slyly positioned her as the unlikely criminal, a thief of both documents and dignity. The murmurs of disbelief flowed through the benches, but Sarah refused to cower. She had already made a pivotal choice: to fight, not just for herself, but for every person dismissed as inconsequential by the elite. As she stood, the fear that had once swallowed her whole transformed into defiance. "Objection, Your Honor," she spoke up, her voice echoing in the tense air. The judge turned, surprised by her audacity. "It is not my role to be underestimated, nor is it wise to infer that the value of a person is dictated by their position." The hesitation in Daniel's eyes ignited a fresh surge of confidence in her. In her resolve, she felt a deep connection to the independent woman she always aspired to be, not merely defined by her job as a cleaner, but as an integral part of the firm's ecosystem. The collective judgment of the courtroom faded into a distant hum as she began laying out her findings, meticulously piecing together the threads of a cover-up hidden in the digital records she had unearthed. As her argument built momentum, she addressed the potential motives driving Daniel's actions. Each point connected to a larger picture, a network of greed and betrayal that exposed the vulnerabilities hidden beneath the polished surface of corporate life. With each revelation, it became painfully clear that Daniel was battling not only her, but also his own weaknesses. "I uncovered discrepancies," she explained confidently, gesturing toward the display screen behind her. "Shifts in document handling and financial irregularities leading back to this firm. The missing evidence, a distraction orchestrated to conceal far greater misdeeds." The gasps from the audience felt validating, setting her resolve deeper. As she captured their attention, a realization dawned on her. This case, regardless of the outcome, was the juncture between who she had been and who she could become. The prosecution had underestimated her. It was no longer about defending herself against Daniel, but proving her own tenacity as a professional. The fear of implicating her children shifted into a promise, a vow to protect not just their future, but her sense of self-worth. But even as the tide shifted, Daniel sat stone-faced, his eyes calculating. She hadn't defeated him just yet. The courtroom trauma was far from over. Would her tenacity be enough to confront the dark secrets lurking within the firm's heart? As the session adjourned for the day, she could sense a storm brewing. Heads would turn, whispers would grow. Sarah's path to self-empowerment had just begun, and every challenge ahead would test her resolve. Would she unravel the truth completely, or was she igniting a fire that could threaten her family's safety? The choices ahead loomed larger than any document. This was about her life, her integrity, and the future she wished to build for her children. The next day would be crucial, and she knew she had to brace for all that was to come, understanding that confrontation was only the beginning of an even larger battle. The next morning, Sarah arrived at the courthouse early, the crisp air colliding with her sharpened resolve. She felt the edges of her confidence fray, yet she clung to the clarity shaped by her previous day's revelations. Each step echoed in her ears, resonating with the haunting memory of the gasps that had erupted at her evidence. Today wasn't simply an extension of yesterday, it was the arena where her newfound strength would be tested further. As she waited, the enormity of her decisions loomed large. The adrenaline from her previous critiques compelled her forward, but lingering dread twisted in the pit of her stomach.
If she had initiated a chain reaction, Daniel and the rest of the firm would undoubtedly respond fiercely. But retreating was no option. For too long she had
played the role of the underestimated, and now she had an opportunity. This could be the moment that spun her fate into a different narrative. The gavel slammed, redirecting her focus back to the present as the judge took her seat. The courtroom filled systematically with the usual suspects, lawyers preparing their notes, the suspecting audience seated with bated breaths, and Daniel, who appeared unfazed, eyes narrowed, a mask of composure presenting him as unassailable. Sarah's gaze hardened. She was here to dismantle that facade. When it was her turn to speak, she stood steadily again. "Your Honor, I would like to revisit the points I presented yesterday. While I am aware the defense seeks to undermine my credibility based on my position, I have proven that the truth is not altered by the titles we hold." Her voice, though steady, had an underlying current of intensity. The same intensity she had felt when she first realized the weight she could carry. With every piece of evidence, she wove a narrative that depicted Daniel not as a beacon of strength, but as a shadow obscuring the very truths the firm relied upon. The more she spoke, the easier it became to leverage the emotions she had once feared. She had uncovered the real malfeasance, potential motives intertwining with threads of human greed, reminders that even the polished elite could crumble. As the hours passed, Daniel grew increasingly restless, shifting in his seat, his fingers tapping against the table rhythmically. She had managed to rattle him. A win against him felt imminent, but with every assertion she made, he shot hard glares, each one laced with threats and promises of retaliation should she press forth too boldly. Halfway through her presentation, she noticed his subtle machinations, the way he leaned into whispered conversations with his counsel, strategically injecting doubt into every statement she made. Sarah felt the air shift, a charged tension enveloping them, and it became evident that he was preparing a calculated counterattack. Her throat tightened. She had to anticipate his next moves, and she had to adapt. Recognizing that she needed to outmaneuver him more than merely relying on her evidence, Sarah considered what lay beneath those polished suits and authoritative tones. They thrived on perceptions she decided to undermine. It was time to play the game differently. Taking a deep breath, she checked her notes and pushed forward with a personal revelation. In this firm, we often see status used as a weapon, not just a descriptor. I may have started as a cleaner, but my perspective comes with an invaluable insight that status cannot validate. Each document I handled, each floor I swept, allowed me to see the intricate webs overlooked by those of higher positions. Ripples of surprise coursed through the audience. She had shifted her position from the passive and silenced to the insightful and worthy. The inner strength she began defining as her own wasn't just her defense, it was her identity. As the session approached its end, and she realized that while she had exposed the superficiality of Daniel's arguments, his next move would be crucial. The atmosphere was charged with suspense. He would retaliate, and she had to be prepared for whatever twist awaited her. With every revelation, the stakes rose, and Sarah vowed not just to unearth truth, but to redefine the narrative entirely. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, and she couldn't afford complacency. Yet, in the recess of her mind, a question loomed large. Could a cleaner truly bring down a titan of industry? The battle felt far from over, and she could sense the weight of the implications pressing down on her shoulders. As she left the courtroom, determined, she made a mental note of the next steps poised before her. Would she have the tenacity to push against the tide, or would the very foundations of her courage be tested in an unexpected showdown? The following day, Sarah slipped back into the courthouse with an air of both trepidation and determination.
The echoes of her words from the prior day still reverberated in her mind. Having stirred the pot, she now had to prepare for the inevitable backlash. The thrill of dauntless confrontation was intoxicating, but it also brought with it a sense of vulnerability. She leaned against the cold, hard wall of the corridor, noting the whispers between the lawyers and the stares from passers-by. Some projected admiration, others skepticism. The unsettling mix of validation and doubt spun through her. How long before Daniel and his allies could twist public sentiment back towards their favor? In those moments of reflection, Sarah felt the weight of each decision she'd made. She was alive within the role of the challenger, yet the emotional cost was high. What if she lost everything due to the intentions of someone determined to reclaim their power? She closed her eyes briefly, recalling her mantra, "Fear is just an illusion." It was time to transform that fear into strategy. Choosing to meet the remaining uncertainty head-on, she gathered her thoughts and focused on the evidence marked for today's counters. Daniel was not just a worthy opponent, he was a master of misdirection. His skill at manipulating perceptions was daunting, yet she'd challenged it before and could do so again. This time, she wouldn't just expose flaws, she would exploit any openings. As she crossed the courthouse lobby, the sharp, sterile scent of polished floors freshened her resolve. Stepping into the courtroom, her pulse quickened. The tension had already accumulated like static in the air. The jury was waiting, and so too was Daniel, seated across the aisle, oozing confidence even amidst the looming storm of accusations directed at him. His composure was unnerving, and as she caught his glare, a chill ran down her spine. When called to the stand, Sarah had the clarity of purpose swelling within her. She began to dismantle each of his counterpoints methodically, revealing inconsistencies that cracked the facade of his reports. "Your Honor,"
started, retaining an unwavering gaze. Every document I interacted with laid the groundwork for a narrative incapable of being silenced, no matter the flack that comes my way. The room seemed to inhale, a collective tension gripping the audience. The walls closed in as the quiet buzz of skepticism shifted towards interest. She could feel the momentum building beneath her, like a wave gaining strength. Yet, within the throes of her resolve, thought flickered in the pit of her stomach. She needed to tilt the tides further. Sarah decided on a bold approach, one that could either seal her fate or secure her victory. She gestured toward a personal account that had stirred emotions previously. While serving as a cleaner in this very building, I learned that the story behind every overlooked document holds value. The metadata of our histories is often ignored by those cloaked in prestige. Daniel's expression darkened, his confidence wavering perceptibly. The energy in the room shifted, whispers chiming around her as spectators began to reconsider their preconceived notions. As she pressed on, reflecting on her journey from cleaner to contributor, Sarah inhaled deeply, letting her vulnerability serve as strength rather than a weapon against her. People needed to hear the truth, the rawness of her experience, intertwined with her knowledge of the firm's inner workings. The more she revealed, the more liberated she felt. The walls of the imposing courtroom began to feel less suffocating, more like an arena where she was reclaiming her voice. She faltered for just a shard of a second, as Daniel leaned forward, ready to retaliate. Would he attempt to discredit her with intimidation or smear her narrative with slander? The tension nearly suffocated her. As she prepared for the onslaught, Sarah realized that the true fight was not against Daniel, but against the insecurities embedded in her past. The moment was pivotal, and she had the upper hand. Could she shatter the illusions he so carefully crafted? Or would her courage face its most daunting test? The confrontation was imminent, yet her excitement churned within her alongside fear and anticipation. One thing remained certain. She was no longer just a cleaner. She was a leader,
and the time had come to face not only her adversary, but also her own challenges. How far would she go to protect her truth? The gavel would finally call for order, but in that moment, her heart raced as she prepared for whatever would come next. And one crucial thought lingered. Would she emerge not just as a survivor, but as a victor in her own tale of redemption? Sarah's heartbeat pounded in her ears, her breath steadying as she braced for Daniel's counterattack. As he stood to object, the air felt electric, crackling with the energy of a courtroom duel. "Your Honor, I find it highly inappropriate for Miss Thomas to flaunt her history to manipulate the jury's emotions," he declared, a layer of feigned indignation cloaking the underlying anxiety she could sense.
The jury's eyes darted between the two, curiosity mixing with skepticism. But Sarah detected a shift. Daniel's mastery of deflection was crumbling under the weight of her truth. She needed to capitalize on this moment to bring Daniel's facade crashing down with a careful strategy that had been forming in her mind since she first took the stand. "Your Honor," she interjected with newfound fervor, her voice piercing the heaviness surrounding them, "my history isn't a manipulation. It's part of who I am. It informs my perspective and understanding of the intricacies within this courtroom, intricacies that others choose to ignore." She leaned slightly forward, letting her body language reinforce her sincerity. In that instant, indignation blossomed within her, but it wasn't just for the case. It was a realization of her own evolution. She had grown from a role defined by cleaning floors to one demanding her intellect and authenticity. The internalization of her experience had fueled her determination, and she was no longer merely a player, she was becoming a strategist. She awaited Daniel's retort, but his mouth twisted as silence echoed around the chamber. The disarray in his expression sparked a flicker of confidence within her. Sarah seized the opportunity to detail further the importance of her narrative, each word calculated yet laced with passion. These documents and their intersections are indicative of systemic issues. The blind side on our pasts grants power to those who wish to overlook us. But she knew the stakes were high. If she couldn't solidify this revelation, every ounce of courage might yield to Daniel's relentless pursuit of dominance. The fight had morphed from a courtroom skirmish to a poignant battle of self-belief. In this moment, she wasn't just contesting Daniel's narrative, she was rewiring her own self-perception, allowing hostility to transform into empowerment. Daniel's surge of confidence faltered even further as she continued. "It is not simply the documents I refer to, it is the stories they hold. The stories of silenced voices, voices like mine." That assertion was more than a mere line. It resonated with purpose, her past a testament to the weight of truth. She could feel the jury leaning in, the undercurrents of empathy seeping into their conscience. This wasn't just about winning anymore. It was a pivotal juncture in her life where the personal intermingled with the professional. Each revelation stripped back layers, exposing her vulnerabilities yet painting them with valor. As she dissected her former role, she highlighted the contrasts of their lives. Hers grounded and real, Daniel's a mosaic of power and manipulation. And then the courtroom fell quiet, a breathless anticipation binding everyone present. Would her authenticity outweigh the machinations of Daniel's calculated deceptions? High stakes clamored in the air, almost palpable. Sarah's confidence surged, blending seamlessly with her trepidation. "Is justice for the common tale being buried beneath the weight of reputation?" she queried, her voice steady yet resonant. "Or do we allow truth to redefine expectations?" The words hung, lingering just long enough to transition. The battle from tactics to truth. She shifted slightly, noticing a few jurors exchanging glances. In this tumultuous tide of emotions, clarity struck anew. She wasn't just fighting for her own understanding. It was about propelling others out of the shadows of doubt. The gavel was yet to drop, the last word unearthed, and now the current cascaded toward an unpredictable conclusion. Yet with the place packed full of anticipation, she sensed something looming in the depths of Daniel's gaze, a readiness to retaliate that hinted at unforeseen revelations. The fight was not over, and she still needed to navigate through the web of deception. Sarah prepared for the challenge ahead, understanding the stakes had amplified, not just for her career, but for the very essence of her self-worth. The moment she had long prepared for was here, yet what lay beneath the surface remained a mystery. Would she be prepared for the unraveling truth that Daniel held? The silence in the courtroom was shrouded in tension, the weight of Sarah's words settling on the jurors like an unfurling shroud. She stood firm, the adrenaline fueling her resolve, as she channeled that moment into a strategic advantage. Years of doubting her voice and underestimating her worth dissipated, replaced by a burgeoning respect for her own journey. It was no longer just about the case at hand. It was about claiming her voice, a powerful asset in a world that sought to suppress it. Daniel leaned back, arms crossed, a mask of feigned nonchalance eroding under the pressure of Sarah's perspective. His confidence was a fortress, but cracks were visibly starting to show. She could sense it. Each moment she held ground, he lost control. His attempts to steer the narrative were becoming desperate and disjointed, a counterpoint to her focused charge. Sarah had transformed the courtroom into an arena of truth, and the stakes were morphing into an intimate battle of authenticity. "Your Honor," Daniel finally sputtered, the frustration boiling through his veneer of self-assuredness, "let's not make this a theater for Miss Thomas's unproven theories." His challenge sparked a deeper resolve within her. The laughter of disbelief echoed in her mind. Their dismissals had fueled her fire. He hadn't just underestimated her intellect, he had underestimated her story. A tale not just of a cleaner-turned-seeker of justice, but of a woman reclaiming her narrative. "I've lived in the shadows of unproven theories," she shot back, the intensity in her voice unwavering. "But I stand here today, equipped with facts and narratives that expose systemic decay, truths rooted deep within the very fabric of our society." Sarah's words struck against Daniel's walls, and she recognized a chance to pivot. While Daniel sought to undermine, she channeled her passion into a structured argument, laying out a detailed timeline, people, events, failures, threading through the documents like a roadmap, illuminating the undercurrents of prejudice entangled in their world. With each point she articulated, she savored the newfound momentum. In dissecting the stories behind the case, she was gifting the jury a deeper understanding. Each testimony shared pulled her personal experiences further from an isolated past into a collective consciousness, breaking the threshold of invisibility she had faced for so long. And yet, beneath her burgeoning confidence lingered an undercurrent of fear. Was this enough? Daniel's implication that her voice lacked validity gnawed at her. She questioned if she was armed adequately for the final showdown. The shadow of doubt twisted her gut, a reminder of the hierarchy she fought against, and she could feel it clawing at her resolve. Each juror's gaze became a heartbeat that raced between belief and skepticism, caught in a visible tug-of-war. The chamber felt smaller, the stakes louder. All that space filled with her battle cry against a system that had often relegated her identity to the fringes. Within that ocean of uncertainty, Sarah realized this was also a fight for herself. Then, just as she felt she had hit her stride, Daniel leaned forward and unleashed the bombshell that shifted the tide. "Isn't it convenient that Miss Thomas has only now unearthed this narrative? One has to wonder what she stands to gain from such dramatic revelations," he said, his tone sharp and cutting. The courtroom shifted.
Gasps fluttered through the air as her heart dropped. A palpable unease gripped her throat. He was turning her strength into a weakness, sowing seeds of doubt. Was this all about personal gain for her? Sarah's breath quickened, grappling with a swirl of thoughts. She felt the ground beneath her tremble, the confidence she had wielded a moment ago flickering like a candle against the chaos he created. Would her story of triumph transform into a tale bearing the scent of greed? Daniel's satisfaction was obvious, a dangerous confidence that seemed to invigorate him. In that moment, uncertainty stung sharp and profound. She had to turn this narrative back around, reclaim her voice before Daniel's accusations blossomed into a reality. As she processed the challenge, a new path emerged. Empowerment was not solely found in bold declarations. It lay in vulnerability, the ability to face doubt while surfacing in authenticity. If she could be brave enough to embrace the uncomfortable dialogue Daniel had started, she could steer this towards truth. The moment surged forward, and Sarah prepared to confront this newfound adversary within the courtroom, as her voice wavered but her intent sharpened. She wasn't merely fighting for justice. She was fighting to reaffirm her essence, to reconcile doubt with determination, revealing a dimension of her story that had yet to unfold. Steeling herself, she took a deep breath, ready to dive into an exposed vulnerability, ready to turn the tide in her favor. One realization rang clear. The next moment would define her, shaping not just the case, but the entire trajectory of her life. What lay behind Daniel's deceptions was now her indomitable truth. Would it be enough to unveil the heart of the matter, or would she have to confront a darker layer within both him
And herself? The room was heavy with anticipation, each pair of eyes focused intensely on Sarah as she stood poised, navigating the treacherous waters that Daniel had introduced. Her heart raced, not from fear, but from an electrifying resolve. She was not just a cleaner anymore, she was a catalyst for change. The specter of doubt lingered, yet it offered companionship against the backdrop of her escalating courage. "Mr. Reyes," she began, her voice unwavering despite the echoing uncertainty within her, "your insinuations imply that my motivations are selfish, but let's dig deeper." She allowed her gaze to sweep across the jurors, inviting them into her narrative, forging a connection. Ask yourselves, in a system that systematically dismisses voices like mine, isn't seeking justice precisely what I am compelled to do? My journey is about more than personal gain. It reveals the systemic failures that hurt many, including my family. She could see a flicker of contemplation among the jurors. Their faces, once cloaked in skepticism, now reflected traces of empathy. Sarah's core belief that truth had a power beyond mere words surged forward, pushing aside the shadows of doubt. She was recasting her story, shifting the lens from individual actions to the broader implications of her fight. Daniel, sensing the tide turning, sprang into action. "How convenient that you gloss over your checkered past, Miss Thomas," he shot back, trying to coerce the narrative back into his favor. "One must wonder if this newfound crusade is merely a distraction from your reality." In that moment, fiery indignation ignited in her. She took a step closer to the jury, the space around her tightening with determination. "I am not ashamed of my past. It shaped me into who I am today. Each harsh experience I encountered was a lesson, a brick laid in the foundation of my resilience." Sarah allowed a beat of silence to settle, using it to let her words resonate. Though memories of her past, a life filled with hard labor and silent struggles, still stung, she realized they were also realms of wisdom. "Every time I cleaned a bathroom or swept a sidewalk, I witnessed unfiltered realities that others turned away from." That declaration was more than just a defense, it was an affirmation of her identity. She spoke about the people she met who didn't have voices, amplifying their stories through her own lens.
Stories of dreams thwarted and potential unrealized because of systemic barriers. She was no longer merely personalizing a struggle, she was universalizing a narrative. Daniel leaned forward, drawn in by her ferocity, but she was undeterred. As she articulated the sequences of events that exposed the rot beneath the system, Sarah found herself becoming the architect of her own destiny. She was elevated by speaking not just as the individual, but as the representation of a class, a struggle that echoed through countless lives. Her voice rang clearer, more confident, even as her insides churned with the past she had carried forward. My journey may have started
in the shadows, but now I reclaim the light. Every testimony I bring forth is a thread woven into the fabric of change. It isn't about me, it's about the people who remain voiceless. With each assertive word, she forged a bridge between her vulnerabilities and the strength they carried. The room felt charged with energy, her vulnerability metamorphosizing into an unmistakable power. But as she looked up, determined to lock eyes with Daniel, an unsettling shift buzzed in the air. He was leaning back in his chair, contemplation dancing across his face. Had she struck a nerve? Is seeking retribution truly justice? He probed, tastelessly eager to expose the doubt lingering. His tone held a thread of veiled insecurity, the shadows of his confidence flickering. Sarah's pulse quickened, not from fear, but from the thrill of possibility. This was the moment to reclaim the narrative again, transform the perceived attack into an avenue of vulnerability that offered authentic reconciliation. And at the edge of her mind, a deeper realization dawned. Confronting Daniel wasn't merely about winning this case. It was about confronting the darkest parts of herself that had long been hidden and silenced, a self that might just hold answers to her most pressing questions. Retribution, Mr. Reyes, is the consequence and the oppression, she replied, the resolve in her tone unwavering. And what I seek is transformation, not just for me, but for all affected by this unjust system. But as she prepared for his next blow, a creeping doubt stirred anew. Would Daniel's next words unravel everything she had built on the stand? Would the jury see the essence of her truth, or would they reflect back his skepticism? The electric tension sharpened. Every second felt stretched like a taut string, ready to snap. Would she emerge stronger from this exchange or unravel under the weight of the scrutiny? Desperate for clarity, she realized all eyes were on her journey, her truth, her moment of reckoning. And she took another deep breath, ready to embrace whatever might explode next. The silence that followed Sarah's declaration hummed like electricity, a tangible tension cascading through the room. Daniel's face was a mask, the sardonic smile he wore giving way to a frown, as if he had tasted something bitter. He seemed to search for his words, floundering as the narrative she had woven grasped tighter around the jury's collective consciousness. She felt his uncertainty seep into the atmosphere, affecting not just him, but the entire courtroom, and it invigorated her. Transformation, he echoed, his disbelief wrapping around the word like barbed wire. And at what cost? Are you prepared to disrupt everything to create this utopia in your mind? The challenge hung heavy in the air, and for a flicker of a moment, doubt crept back into her heart, like a shadow among the light she had fought so hard to reclaim. The past whispered to her, tempting her with familiar fears of inadequacy. But she shook her head slightly, clearing the cobwebs. Transformation wasn't easy, she reminded herself. It demanded action, sacrifices, and uncomfortable introspections, much like the process she was enduring at that very moment.
"Change comes with discomfort, Mr. Reyes," she countered, her voice gaining strength. "It's not about creating perfection. It's about fostering understanding and empathy. What I envision is not just my liberation, but a disruption of complacency. We cannot continue to allow ourselves to ignore the struggles of others." The jury sat enthralled, their expressions oscillating from skepticism to dawning recognition. Sarah grasped this shift, using it as a beacon to guide her next steps. She had traversed the valleys of her past, each moment of turmoil serving as fuel to her rising tide of conviction. "When I walked through those alleys and worked on those streets, I saw what you see when you look away. I learned about hardship. Each life I encountered taught me the importance of clarity and purpose, lessons I carry with me today." As she spoke, she noticed moments of understanding pass like a ripple across the jury, their faces softening as they began to reflect on their own experiences of struggle, of transformation. With each detail she shared, the invisible walls began to crumble, and she was no longer merely defending herself. She was leading a conversation that demanded attention. But even as the initial momentum built, a shadow lurked. Was her power truly rooted in these revelations, or could it all disintegrate with the final blow Daniel was yet to deliver? She could sense him lurking, plotting his assault. It was a delicate dance to maintain her growing confidence while bracing for the next strike. "Have you ever considered that your struggle could be a narrative of your own making, Miss Thomas?" he challenged, regaining a hint of swagger. "You've taken the role of the martyr. Are you simply using this platform to absolve yourself?" The question felt like a knife, delicate yet sharp, inserting itself into her burgeoning strength. She locked eyes with him, an urge thrumming through her to retreat, but pushing forward instead. "If that were true, then I would deny the truths of all those who shared their stories with me," she shot back, unwavering. "To deflect their pain as mine would only compound injustice." Her own thoughts raced, a pulsating mixture of self-reflection and indignation at the false narrative he tried to construct. Each confrontation, each question, was more than an interrogation. It was a plunge into her past, nudging her closer to the core of her truth. Perhaps the quest for justice was also a quest for clarity within herself, a means to understand her conflicting motivations, not just for herself, but for those who remained silent. "And isn't it beautiful," she continued, voice steady, "that in the fight for identity, I've discovered strength? Isn't that perhaps the greatest irony of all?" The murmurs among the jurors swelled, drawing her into their energy, their whispers becoming a symphony. What if, she thought in that moment, this
was the direct confrontation she needed to not only face Daniel but also her own doubts? As the weight of the jury's gaze rested on her, she realized there was no turning back. This battle spanned more than just the courtroom. It reached into the depths of her psyche, revealing a simmering resolve that demanded acknowledgement. "Justice is not simply retribution," she declared, her voice a commanding whisper. "It's the act of acknowledging both our pain and our power." But the uncertainty hung in the air, and as Sarah steadied herself for Daniel's next thrust, she sensed the possibility of a revelation, a connection that could redefine everything. Would this moment elevate her beyond the accusations and into true empowerment? Or would she find herself ensnared in a web of misinterpretation and doubt? The court, the moment, and her journey teetered on the edge of an impending revelation. The air in the courtroom thickened with anticipation as Sarah prepared herself for Daniel's next move. His lip curled slightly, a clear sign of his intent to drive another stake into her resolve.
Yet this time she met his gaze with something deeper, an understanding that she was not just defending herself, she was challenging the very framework in which their narratives were entwined. "Your transformation is admirable, truly," he began, his voice dripping with condescension. "But how can we trust the words of someone who plays the role of the heroine? Are you sure your story isn't tainted by your own ego?" The room trembled at the suggestion, but rather than flounder under his implications, a fire ignited within her. Ego. She had spent years dismantling the armor of arrogance that had once encased her, replacing it with a reflective humility grounded in authenticity. "There is no glory in martyrdom, Mr. Reyes. The truth is far too complex for your black and white perspective. I stand not as a heroine, but as a survivor, sharing the lessons learned from those who've suffered silently." His brow furrowed, caught off guard perhaps by her rebuke. In that moment, the doubt she had battled earlier began to fade, replaced by a conviction so powerful it needed to be unleashed. She pressed on, determined to clarify her purpose. "The stories of those I've met have shaped my resolve. They are not my ego's fabrications. They are the roots of my identity. A part of me still walks those streets, still feels that pain," she posited, her voice now soaring with confidence. "I expose the truth so that we don't neglect the ugly parts of our reality. I invite us all to confront what we've chosen to ignore." Some jurors leaned forward, intrigued. The evolution in her delivery was palpable as Sarah started to embrace not just her past, but also her present. Each word she spoke was a conscious act of self-affirmation, a confrontation of the fears that once held her captive. "I've learned to embrace discomfort, to welcome the struggle," she continued. "Transformative journeys often begin in the mire, amidst uncertainty. I understand that I may not have all the answers, but what I will never do is shy away from the questions that push us toward growth." She could feel the courtroom shift, a metamorphosis that mirrored her own personal growth within the walls that had once encased her sense of self. Daniel, sensing the tide wasn't turning in his favor, tightened his grip on the papers in his hands, desperation seeping through his composure. "But isn't it easier to use your past to gain sympathy? You risk trivializing genuine hardship when you present your struggle as a badge of honor." That accusation could have unraveled her, but Sarah sensed a newfound clarity. She did not need his validation. She had arrived at a point of self-acceptance. "I don't seek sympathy, Daniel. I seek connection. The essence of understanding lies in the discomfort of confronting our shared humanity. It's not about me, it's about all of us." In her mind, the chains of doubt began to fracture, revealing pathways she had been too afraid to tread. Perhaps this questioning was not merely a challenge to her narrative, but an opportunity for deeper introspection. Each moment spent defending herself against him was not a measure of weakness, but rather a testament to her commitment to authenticity. As the jury absorbed the emotional weight of her statements, she could practically see their perspectives shift, beliefs questioned, and biases challenged. In that instant, she wasn't just a defendant, she was forging a bridge between past and present, inviting discourse about the very nature of struggle and resilience. "Tonight, we redefine what it means to be resilient," she concluded, her voice steady and assertive. "True strength is built in our willingness to expose our vulnerabilities." Daniel's expression soured, knowing he had underestimated the impact of her narrative, but it was the reaction of the jury that mattered most. They began to stir. Whispers filled the air like the rustle of leaves in an awakening breeze. Had she unwittingly cast a spotlight on a truth that could revolutionize their understanding? As she waited for Daniel's retort, a new exhilaration rushed through her veins. She stood at a precipice, peering into the unknown, the tumult of her heart echoing last night's resolve. What more could she reveal if given the chance? The silence that followed was pregnant with possibility, thick with unanswered questions. She sensed that something profound was teetering on the edge. Her journey of transformation was far from over. And as she caught Daniel's gaze once more, a question crystallized in her mind, rippling through her consciousness. What if this wasn't just a battle for justice, but a clarion call to pursue the truth hidden deep within herself? As the courtroom settled into a tense silence, Sarah felt the weight of each gaze fixed upon her. This was not merely a hearing, but a crossroads in her life, and she had long prepared for this moment. With each breath, her resolve solidified, cementing the bold woman she'd become, rising from the shadows of her past. Mr. Reyes, your attempts to undermine my authenticity only serve to highlight your own insecurity, she declared, her confidence emanating bright and unmistakable. Dismissing pain as a ploy for sympathy reveals not just your ignorance, but a fundamental misunderstanding of the human experience. I share my story for awareness, not validation. The ripple she felt among the jurors inspired her to lean into her narrative, intertwining her journey and insights into a tapestry of resilience. As she named every struggle and challenge faced in her life, emotions welled within her, memories of late nights, scrubbing floors while dreaming of a better future for her children, the whispered sacrifices echoing through the years. She reclaimed her worth, allowing each memory the space to breathe. Every obstacle I've overcome has been a lesson toward empowerment, teaching me that I possess strength regardless of my title as a cleaner, she continued, her voice carrying the unmistakable timbre of authenticity. I have transformed pain into purpose. I stand here not as a victim of circumstance, but as a participant in a much larger narrative. The stark contrast of her life against the polished veneer of the elite firm encapsulated everything she fought against. She glanced at Daniel, whose expression betrayed a flicker of alarm as she embraced the fullness of her truth. Words poured from her, flowing through the courtroom like a tidal wave, a wave that surfed over the weight of discrimination and dashed against the shore of misunderstanding. Those in power often silence voices like mine. I choose to speak, to ensure that the hidden stories echo for others. Can you say the same? She let each word sit heavy and clear within the room. The jury, once a sea of skepticism, now leaned in, visibly absorbing her insights. She could see the change flickering in their expressions, the initial doubts melting into contemplation. They recognized the essence of her fight, a pursuit not merely for justice, but for the dignity of existence and the importance of every individual's story. As Daniel attempted to retort, a surge of adrenaline coursed through Sarah. She knew that maintaining control of her narrative would shift not only the tide of the courtroom, but also her future. You suggest that my perspective is rooted in self-interest, but I invite you to reconsider, she said, allowing vulnerability to lace her determination. While I stand for myself, I also stand for those silenced in their struggles. My fight for justice is a clarion call for a more equitable system. With each declaration, Sarah felt the shackles of her previous insecurities crumble. The courtroom morphed into a sanctuary of truth, where her growth became universal and her courage a beacon of hope. She realized this wasn't solely about winning a case. It was about redefining her identity as someone worthy of recognition, not just as a cleaner, but as a competent professional equipped to navigate the complexities of justice. Seeing Daniel's shifting demeanor further fueled her resolve. You suggest that my perspective is rooted in self-interest, but I invite you to reconsider, she said, allowing vulnerability to lace her determination. While I stand for myself, I also stand for those silenced in their struggles. My fight for justice is a clarion call for a more equitable system." With each declaration, Sarah felt the shackles of her previous insecurities crumble. The courtroom morphed into a sanctuary of truth, where her growth became universal and her courage a beacon of hope. She realized this wasn't solely about winning a case. It was about redefining her identity as someone worthy of recognition, not just as a cleaner, but as a competent professional equipped to navigate the complexities of justice. Seeing Daniel's shifting demeanor further fueled her resolve.